Is Donald Trump the newest proponent of Medicare for all? What's Joe Biden think? And is Bernie Sanders still alive? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Well, I was watching the White House briefing a couple days ago, a day or two ago, and there was a particular interaction which I thought should have made headline news all over the world. In this little clip that you're about to see, Mike Pence is up there, and a reporter asks him about the gap, the donut hole, and that would be the 28 to 30 million uninsured Americans. And obviously in the current situation that we're in, that's a massively significant number considering all the ramifications of this whole COVID-19 situation. Now, I generally have avoided the topic of COVID-19 on this channel, and this video is not necessarily about COVID-19, it's about healthcare. So Mike Pence gives the usual answer, which is no answer at all. He didn't address the question at all. And Trump, who is on the sideline, interrupts and says the following.
I think it's a very fair question, though, and it's something we're really going to look at because it doesn't seem fair. If you have it, you have a big advantage, and at a certain income level you do. I think it's one of the greatest answers I've ever heard. Because Mike was able to speak for 5 minutes and not even touch your question. No, I said that's what you call a great professional. But let me just tell you, you really are. It's really a fair question, and it's something we're looking at.
This is a huge worry for people in this country who are in that donut hole. They don't have commercial insurance. They don't qualify for Medicaid. Right. What do they do?
Group, and it's a pretty big group. We're looking at it.
I mean, we spent the entire 2000 election talking about the donut hole, and it's still there.
Yeah, we are. I haven't been up there yet, though. The other people have been talking about it.
No, I mean,
and they haven't spoken.
This was 20 years ago we were talking about it.
But they're talking about it. They're talking about it. I know, but they're talking about it in the 2020 election, too, and nobody's gotten to it. Nobody's talked about it at all.
Mr. President?
I think we will, yeah. I think we're going to get to it. I think we're going to get to it. I don't think the other group will get to it. They haven't even spoken about it. And it's a big group of people.
So are you committing that there's
something? No, I'm not committing, but it's something we're going to look at. I can't commit. I have to get approval from it. I have a thing called Congress.
So there's Trump saying it's not fair that these people who are trapped in the donut hole, that is, you don't make enough money to be able to afford any real coverage from private insurance, and you make too much money to qualify for Medicaid, that means that you're part of the 28 to 30 million folks in the United States without any health coverage. And he said, I don't think that that's fair because the other people definitely have an advantage over those other people. And then he talks about we've got to do something to address it. Well, however you address it and whatever you call it, that's what Bernie Sanders has been preaching for the last 40 years, and that is essentially Medicare for all. Now, obviously, Trump, if he actually follows through with something like this, obviously he would come up with another title for it. He'd probably call it Trump Care or something like this. But there it is. And I want you to know, this is off the cuff. This is Trump freestyling, and this is Trump saying what he feels. Now, I don't know what significantly changed in Trump's mind. Being a person of privilege, he probably didn't see the immediacy of the necessity for Medicare for all. And considering what has Trump been doing for the last 4 years as president of the United States? That's right, fighting Robert Mueller and dealing with the Zelensky call, etc., etc., etc. You remember in other videos where I said, why isn't CNN running stories of all these people who are dying every year because they're uninsured? And I said that would have put tremendous pressure on Trump to address the issue, but he didn't have any pressure on him to address the issue because he was dealing with the impeachment nonsense for 4 years. Now Trump has to deal with health care because health care is front and center, and wouldn't you know it, he's coming out sounding like Bernie Sanders. Now, he's not Bernie Sanders. He's a Republican. And you will notice that at the end, when the other reporter lady said, "Are you committing to basically Medicare for all?" He goes, "I'm not committing to anything. There's this thing called Congress," because he understands that even with a majority Republican Congress, he'd have a massive fight on his hands. If he did try to pass Medicare for all, the media apparatus would have to completely change lanes because they were calling this a communist pipe dream 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so he knows that he still got his wits about him to not commit to that on camera. Now, that was 2 days ago. Now, look, here's Joe Biden. And this is Joe Biden's discussion about the very same thing about a week ago. Let's watch.
Let's flash forward. Your president, Bernie Sanders, is still active in the Senate. He manages to get Medicare for all through the Senate in some compromised version, the Elizabeth Warren version or other version. Nancy Pelosi gets a version of it through the House of Representatives. It comes to your desk. Do you veto it?
I would veto anything that delays providing the security and the certainty of health care being available now. Then you got to look at the cost. I want to know, how did they find the $35 trillion? What is that doing? Is it going to significantly raise taxes on the middle class, which it will? What's going to happen? Look, my opposition isn't to the principle that you should have Medicare. I mean, everybody, health care should be a right in America. My opposition relates to whether or not, A, it's doable, 2, what the cost is, and what the consequences. How are you going to find $35 trillion over the next 10 years?
That's right. That's right. You had Donald Trump yesterday, 2 days ago, saying, it's not fair that you get all these people uninsured. And I don't necessarily know how we're going to do it, but we got to do it. We got to do something about it. The other side isn't talking about it. Well, for Trump to say the other side isn't talking about it is not necessarily true. Because there's been a person on the other side who's been talking about it for 40 years. But Trump knows that that person stands no chance, and that person has been excised and excommunicated from the Democratic Party by the powers that be. So there is a sense in which he's 100% right. And then you have Biden, who's on the left, who he took this interview in the midst of the crisis, and he's saying, yeah, but how much is it going to cost? That's right. That's what he said. What's that going to do with the budget? So you had Trump freestyling, saying, we got to do something about this. This isn't fair what's happening to these people. Now, it's not fair is not as urgent as I would like to hear. I like when Bernie comes on, because I believe that Bernie talks about these matters with the commensurate urgency that this situation necessitates. But, you know, Trump goes, it's not fair. But here's Biden. Biden says, yeah, what's it going to do to the budget? How are you going to find the trillions? That's what he said. Unbelievable. Okay, so here's Biden a couple days ago. Now, this is after Trump released the whole 100,000 to 240,000 number of deaths, not cases, but estimated deaths of COVID. And here is Joe Biden's most recent comments on Medicare for all.
If you had the Medicare for all option now, it still has to be implemented by the federal government. Look, here's the point. The idea that this would have stopped the virus from occurring, the idea it would have been able to be implemented earlier, the idea it would have fundamentally changed anything, is just not accurate.
So there we go. This is unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. Mr. Biden, nobody is saying that Medicare for all would have cured Corona before it hit the shores of the United States of America. However, there are social ramifications to having a single-payer healthcare system, one of which is if you're actually sick, you go to the doctor because you're not worried about incurring medical fees. And everybody knows one of the quickest ways of, or one of the most surefire ways of prevention is early detection. And so you've got a bunch of people, Walmart workers, etc., who are going to work knowing that they are sick and risking it because they cannot afford. Do you realize it's like $30,000 $30,000 for the actual treatment of COVID-19. Okay? So the testing is free, but the treatment of COVID-19 is about it's a luxury car or a very good down payment on a $250,000 house. Yeah, people are going to risk their lives, particularly men. You know, I was in an insurance forum one time and they were talking about why insurance is higher for men than for women. And one is because men take more risks than women, and two is because men are more hesitant to go to the doctors than women are. So you've got these people, these Walmart workers, these Amazon workers, etc., who are going to go to work sick. Some of whom I know personally, who are going to work sick and then are just told by their nurses, stay home. That's all he was told. Guys exhibiting the symptoms of corona, and all they told him was stay home. Why isn't he going to the doctor? It's because he's got the crappy insurance from Walmart, and he'd rather sit home and wait it out. This individual, by the way, has an immunocompromised father. Horrible situation. So, no, if this individual had a single-payer healthcare system, he wouldn't have went to the Walmart nurse, and the Walmart nurse told him to go home. He would have went straight to the actual clinics that are around our area, but he can't. That's the point, Mr. Biden, is that you commoditizing healthcare has created situations in which people are much more likely to either A, wait until it's far too late to get treatment, and B, have the onset symptoms of coronavirus and still go to work. Now, here's what's killing me about this entire situation. I've been saying this to you guys since the inception of this channel. These people in the DNC have run one of the most successful psychological operations we have ever seen in the history of human beings. They have successfully found a way to blame Donald Trump for everything that they do. They blame Donald Trump for colluding with the Russians. And we know from the Mueller report that it was actually Hillary and her crew that were colluding with the Russians, and that they had no evidence that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians at all. Remember that Fusion GPS with Hillary Clinton's folks? These people, they were talking about Zelensky and corruption in Ukraine. There was no corruption on Trump's part in Ukraine. Mr. Biden's son, however, was part of a very, very corrupt organization where the lead prosecutor just happened to be fired, and this individual swore under oath that he was fired because of QPQ Joe. Remember the whole quid pro quo? There was no quid pro quo, and the only verbiage of quid pro quo from Trump was him saying, I do not want any quid pro quo. Meanwhile, Biden got on TV and bragged about how he blackmailed, he extorted. It wasn't even QPQ. In my mind, it was extortion. They extorted the Ukrainians to the tune of $1 billion if they didn't fire the prosecutor who just happened to be prosecuting Biden's son. I mean, that means we don't want to look at that. And so they've crafted this yarn that Donald Trump is literally worse than Hitler, and they crafted this yarn that any blue will do, and we've got to go and select anybody because Donald, the number one priority is not the health and well-being and prosperity of the American people. No, you silly citizen, you. The number one priority is to get rid of Donald Trump, which means that you're going to have to, in the words of Mrs. Biden, swallow it and go with whoever they tell you that you need to vote for. So now here we are in the midst of a national crisis, a healthcare pandemic. And Mr. Trump, for whatever reason, it is now in his consciousness that there are millions of Americans who are screwed over by the healthcare system. And now he's saying, off the cuff, this isn't fair, we got to do something about this. It's as if this is the first time he's ran into the situation. You see, Donald Trump's major thing in 2016 was on trade. Why? Because that's the world that he lives in, and he understands the deleterious effects of outsourcing on the American worker because that was his area. He wasn't really big on healthcare. But now, because this thing is in his face, he has got to deal with it. And when he's looking at that gap of 28 to 30 million Americans, he's saying, wait a second here, this isn't good. It's like it's the first time he's ran into it. Now, let me ask you a question. When Donald Trump makes a campaign promise, when have we seen him actively reverse it? He tried to build the wall. Remember the whole jihad he had with Pelosi around 2018, 2019? Remember that whole thing? Mr. Trump, if he says he's going to do something, goes out of his way and tries to make it happen. So I don't know if he's like saying, we definitely got to have Medicare for all, and if he's going to push it or whatever. All I know is that's what's going on in his mind, and we're getting his honest thoughts. That's all we know at this point. But did you notice in the last little clip with Biden, he was looking down at his notes? You know what that means? That means he has thought it through as much as he can, considering his current mental state. God forgive me if I'm mocking him. But he thought it through, and this is what he means to do in spite of the fact of the current situation we're in. What about the budget? Where are you going to find the money? Where are you going to find the trillions? I don't know, Mr. Biden. We just found a bunch of trillions to give to the top 1,000 people in our country for them to pick up the pieces after everybody goes bankrupt and they get to buy up all the industries, so they'll be richer than they were ever before. So we found the trillions there. I think we could find the trillions for the healthcare, and I don't care. Here's the thing. Somebody asked me this. We're going to find the money. I don't care where you find the money. I don't care. I'm sick and tired of hearing about American citizens dying needlessly in this country because we've commoditized healthcare. So I don't. That question is irrelevant to me. It's always been irrelevant to me. But this is madness. This is unbelievable. So I'm supposed to take this guy, the guy who said he would veto. Now think about this. Who has more political gains by supporting Medicare for all? Trump or Biden? Obviously, the answer is Biden. Because if you want to get the Bernie Sanders group, who is the runner-up to you, Mr. Biden, if you want to get that group of people to even consider voting for you, then you have got to throw them a bone about Medicare for all. But in two instances, in the midst of a healthcare crisis, he said, one, I would veto it, and two, where are you going to get the money, and three, this wouldn't help us anyway in the current situation we're in. Biden is going out of his way to give the middle finger to all of Bernie's supporters, even though it would be politically expedient for him to do the opposite. And then you got Trump. The entire Fox News apparatus, in which he is obviously connected to, has been railing against Medicare for all since 2016, calling it communism, calling it socialism, saying it's going to destroy the economy, yada, 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 yada. And so it was extremely risky, actually, for Mr. Trump to come out and air his thoughts in that situation. And that's why Mike Pence, who he called a professional, spent 5 minutes not answering the question. Because that's what you're supposed to do as a Republican in a situation like this. You can't come out and say you don't care about those 28 million people uninsured, but you also can't come out there and say, well, yeah, we need to do something. That isn't fair. So Mike Pence ran around for 5 minutes, didn't answer the question at all. And then Trump came out, called out his buddy right to his face, interrupted, took the podium and said, yeah, we got to do something about this. He has nothing to gain politically for coming out for Medicare for all on his side. Biden has a ton to gain for coming out for Medicare for all on his side, and he's actively refusing to do it, and you're telling me that I need to vote for him because Trump is literally Hitler. What a ridiculous thing to say. And if you still believe that, that's because you have been successfully brainwashed by the This is Clockwork Orange level brainwashing the likes that I have never seen. That guy is better than Donald Trump. Stop it. Stop it. Let me tell you something. Here's the last thing. Bernie Sanders is alive and well. You know, he went on The View yesterday. Whoopi Goldberg beat him up. And everybody knows that they can beat up Bernie Sanders because he's soft. Jimmy Dore has completely turned against him. I'm not going to say he's a coward. He's just soft, Jimmy. The guy, he's just soft. I mean, he is who he is. But I'm going to tell you something right now. Bernie Sanders is still alive. And he he's got another debate. Now, the Biden crew is pulling every stop they possibly can because I have no proof for this. I fully and totally believe that he was prepped like crazy for that previous debate. I believe that the CNN anchor went to his house and they did 5 days of iterations of this debate. I truly, truly do. Because that Biden that we saw in the debate was a complete anomaly. A complete anomaly. I mean, look at what, I mean, it was crazy stuff. Alzheimer's. Then he had the debate and he was completely lucid and everything worked. And then right after that, all of his media appeared. I mean, he blacked out for a while. We didn't see him. I was going to shoot a video. Does Biden have COVID-19? I literally was. I decided against it. He disappeared for a while because his campaign staffer strategy was to just hide him. And then then Andrew Cuomo, the Cuomo guy, started becoming, everybody's dad, the guy with the piercings. All right, whatever. He started gaining in popularity, and then Trump was doing his daily thing, and then Bernie marshaled $2 million to do stuff. So then he had to get thrust back into the limelight. And you saw what he did in the media. You saw it. So they don't want Bernie. They don't want Bernie to continue. I think Bernie's smelling a little blood in the shark tank, hopefully. And if there's another debate, who knows? Bernie might really, really come after him this time and call him a liar to his face. Bernie's got another shot here where he can really, really expose Biden. And I think he's still alive. I think he's still in the running. I just got a really cool message from Isabel Jimenez where Princeton level, very educated individual who was against Bernie in New York State is now pro Bernie due to this situation. It's really terrible commentary on Americans, fiscally conservative Americans, that now, because of COVID-19, people are starting to reconsider Medicare for all. You know why that is? Because previously, when we were crying about diabetes and cancer and things like that, people were like, yeah, tough luck, but cancer and diabetes is not a communicable disease. So, too bad for those people. Whereas now, with COVID, it is a communicable disease. And it now can have effect on all of us. So now that there's a situation, an affliction that can afflict all of us, now all of a sudden, people want health care for all. Terrible commentary. Now, I'm a Christian, and there are tons of ramifications to that fact that I'm going to leave unsaid. But for whatever reason, people are much more open to the concept of Medicare for all, and I believe that Mr. Sanders has a window, and I don't believe that Biden's going to be able to catch lightning in a bottle twice at these debates, which is why his crew is fighting like mad to get Bernie to get out of the race. I think Bernie needs to stay in the race, if for any reason, not even about Biden, but to keep the Medicare for all flag waving and keep pressuring Trump to take this as seriously as he is beginning to take it seriously. Okay? Now, here's what I'll tell you right now. If November comes around and Bernie's there, I'm obviously voting for Bernie. But if November comes around and it's Biden versus Trump, and Trump is really serious about what he just said, I am absolutely going to vote for Donald Trump. 100%. If Donald Trump comes out and says, something's going to happen to the economy, sure, but we got to find a way to fix this donut hole situation with these 28 million people, 100% I'm voting for Donald Trump. You know why? Because my value system is not to beat Trump. My value system is what is going to promote the health, well-being, and prosperity of the United States of America. And I am pro-life. And this commoditized healthcare system has literally murdered hundreds and thousands over decades of our citizenry. And if you're pro-life, that should bother you. That should really bother you. Now, I would put Bernie over Trump. Why? Because I trust that Bernie's going to do everything in his power to make that happen. Although, based on Bernie's weakness, his just complete and total limp-wristed approach to politics. I don't even know. I trust him as a person. I don't really trust him as a politician. Bernie's number one, but if Trump comes out and says he's going to do some sort of Trump care, Medicare for all thing and deal with these 28 million people, I would definitely vote for him over Biden. Biden had just said in the midst of the plague that we could put this man in a time machine, send him to Europe. We could send this guy to Europe during the bubonic plague, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I mean, we can find a way to cure everybody of the bubonic plague, but I mean, what's that going to do for the budget?" And any blue is better. Anybody is better than Trump. Okay, all right. You people are brainwashed if you believe that. We've just seen a contrast here. Come on, y'all. We know what the DNC has been doing for the last 4 years. They've been actively, come on, you've seen it. You've seen it. Look what they did to Bernie in 2016. Do you realize that if they wouldn't have screwed Bernie out of the election in 2016, that we'd be in much better shape right now? Because this man, we had a healthcare-centric president in Bernie Sanders in 2016. Who here believes that those people that got fired under the Trump situation and didn't get rehired, who here believes that Bernie would have done that? The man was completely focused on healthcare. Now, our economy would not have been booming the way it was under Trump. I don't believe that. But we would be in a much better situation with Bernie at the helm than with Hillary or Trump. And the DNC's theft of the nomination from Bernie Sanders is part and parcel of the reason we're in this situation now. And they have successfully gotten everybody to look away from their BS. Don't you remember a couple months ago, the whole Iowa debacle, the whole flipping of a coin thing? These people have been putting us in horrible situations due to they despise democracy and they despise the common American voter. Those are facts. They believe that they know better than us about who to put in office. They put up Hillary, the world's worst candidate in 2016 against Trump. They lost. Trump did what he did. He was in economics. He was focused on trade. He was focused on the economy. He was not focused on healthcare. Here we go. I'm sorry, but a lot of the blame for this situation has got to go to the DNC. And I am never, ever going to let them off the hook by falling for their Trump is literally worse than Hitler nonsense. This is their guy. And I'm sure you know by now that Biden is not coming up with any of his talking points by himself. Biden is an obvious stooge of the DNC. He says what they want him to say, and he doesn't say what they don't want him to say. They wrote those notes for him. And these are the people that are telling us that anybody is better than Trump, and you're supposed to vote blue no matter who. Nope. 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 As it stands right now, I'm not voting for either one of these dudes, Trump or Biden. But if Trump gets really serious about this Medicare for all stuff, and if there are follow-up questions about this, and he continues to angle towards some sort of Trump care or Medicare for all thing, you better believe he's going to win in an even more crazy landslide than he is already. Anyway, guys, wash your hands thoroughly. Sing the happy birthday song, right? That'll get you there. Practice social distancing the best that you can. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.